Sauces: Alfredo, bechamel, bordelaise, hollandaise, teriyaki. As observed by Julia Child from her television kitchen, a good sauce can make even an ordinary dish taste extraordinary. In other words, a delicious sauce can compensate for a dish's more lackluster elements. In Bong Joon-Ho's film Mickey17, Ylfa Marshall, the wife of failed politician Kenneth Marshall, embraces the culinary spirit of sauces and tries to develop a sauce that will mask the unappetizing flavors of her synthetic rations. Ylfa obsesses over developing and refining the perfect sauce, and she goes so far as to solicit praise for her sauce recipes even at the most inappropriate moments, like in the middle of a standoff. Moreover, Ylfa tries to create some savory salvation of a sauce, not from the comfort of a pristine kitchen, but in remote space while aboard a ship with limited resources and tools. In this way, Bong Joon-Ho frames sauce, and food in general, as a symbol for the class divisions that manifest between the wealthy elite, as embodied by Kenneth and Ylfa, and everyone else. Food first divides Mickey from the wealthy elite when he and his friend Timo are taken hostage after a failed business venture. Mickey and Timo are forced to witness the gruesome execution of another unfortunate soul who defaulted on his loan. The threat is clear for Mickey and Timo. Should they fail to repay their debts, they will meet a similar fate. As Mickey and Timo tremble in fear at the sights and sounds of a chainsaw hacking a man to pieces, their ruthless loan shark calmly cuts and eats a thick steak only a few feet away. Through the parallel images of a steak and a human body being chopped into pieces, Bong Joon-Ho suggests that the wealthy regard those of lower socioeconomic status as little more than slabs of meat for consumption. The wealthy do not view other people as literal food to be eaten, but rather as husks of flesh prime for exploitative use. The loan shark has no actual need to eat, of course, while a murder by his command takes place mere feet from his table. If there were any occasion when one might feel compelled to put down the fork and knife, it would most likely be during a live execution. At this moment, the loan shark does not eat for sustenance. He eats to reinforce the differences between his relationship with food and the relationship Mickey and Timo have with theirs. The loan shark eats for the sake of eating, for the sake of enjoyment. Mickey and Timo eat for functional nutrition. Mickey and Timo cannot afford to eat with abandon due to their financial ruin, and it appears that their potential clientele cannot afford to do so either, seeing that they never purchased enough macarons to keep Mickey and Timo's business afloat in the first place. As the wealthy, represented by the loan shark, preoccupy themselves with the sensory delights of delicate foods, they ignore the bleak reality of those around them, represented by Mickey and Timo, who cannot consistently eat for survival. Bong Joon-Ho establishes a theme that he fleshes out over the course of his film: the deep apathy the elite experience toward anyone other than themselves, and especially those who complete some form of labor on their behalf. Bong Joon-Ho expands his exploration of food as a symbol for class divisions when Mickey and Timo take to space in an attempt to avoid death at the hands of their loan shark. Mickey and Timo enlist themselves to join Kenneth Marshall on his journey to Niflheim, an icy planet several thousand miles away from Earth. The passengers aboard Marshall's spaceship serve specialized roles both during travel and upon arrival at Niflheim. Mickey works as an expendable, a person whose primary function is to die in various experimental situations to further research. Timo works as a pilot. Once his passengers board his spaceship, failed politician Kenneth Marshall outlines several critical rules for the future colonizers of Niflheim. Marshall stipulates that all aboard will receive rations of food, which are scaled and distributed to the very ounce. The quote-unquote food lacks color, texture, and flavor, and its only function is to provide fuel for energy. There is no enjoyment to any of the senses in slopping up the grayish goop distributed in the mess hall. Despite the fact that all passengers must embrace their new reality of purely functional food, Ylfa cannot accept these new conditions for herself. Ylfa begins a quest for the perfect sauce which she can use to coat and cover her rations. It should be noted that, even as a baseline, Ylfa's rations look nothing like Mickey's or any other workers. They're of an inherently higher quality. Sauces generally serve to enhance the flavor of a dish by accentuating certain nuances in spice, seasoning, or richness. In other words, sauces are reserved for foods that emphasize taste rather than nutrition, for cuisine which seeks to elicit pleasure rather than provide basic calories. And yet, Ylfa prioritizes the perfection of her so-called sauce above all else. When Marshall and Ylfa discover the coexistence of Mickeys 17 and 18, they sentence the Mickeys to collect tails from creepers, a native species to Niflheim, so Ylfa can blend them into a bloody liquid as part of her latest sauce recipe. Despite putting the lives of Mickey17 and Mickey18 at fatal risk in their venture outside the ship, and despite the increasingly large number of of creepers threatening the lives of everyone inside the ship, Ylfa remains preoccupied with acquiring creeper tails for her so-called sauce. Bong Joon-Ho emphasizes the grossly misaligned priorities that simmer among the wealthy elite. Sauce is more important than human lives, which are more important than animal lives. The hierarchy of importance is dictated not by actual need, but by the whims and desires of an elite whose qualifications include nothing else than wealth and status. The wealthy elite of Marshall's ship, and the wealthy elite they represent in our actual society, remain oblivious to the plights of those who lack the basic necessities of food, shelter, or water, and the slightly higher ones of safety, security, and comfort. Neither Ylfa nor Marshall flinches at the prospect of slashing Mickey17's allotment of calories, despite his employment as a man who literally dies for a living, but Ylfa expresses far more concern at the notion that Mickey may dislike the taste of her sauce. Ylfa distills her philosophy of sauce and life when she observes that sauce is the true litmus test of a civilization. Ylfa's sentiment reveals her belief that the most advanced civilizations are those that have enough wealth and status to devote creative energies and essential resources to the perfection of a sauce, and even at the expense of its citizens. Besides the absurdity of this remark, an obvious irony resides in the fact that life aboard Marshall's ship is a far cry from anything approximating civilization. If Ylfa's philosophy were true, it would speak volumes about her so-called civilization that its version of a quote-unquote sauce is a blended tale without any additional ingredients. There is no labor involved in developing Ylfa's master sauce, other than maiming an innocent being and liquefying one of its body parts. The implication is clear. If sauce is a litmus test for civilization, then the civilization on Marshall's ship is built on exploitation of the lower classes and the delusion of its upper ones, or at least, its two leaders. Bong Joon-Ho emphasizes the bleak reality that civilization structures itself less so around any semblance of order or objective standard than the arbitrary truth of its leaders. Bloody tail juice can be considered a sauce if the wealthy elite chooses to designate it as such. A ship in space, or a nation on Earth for that matter, can be branded a civilization not because it is one, but because its leaders declare it as such. And there is nothing saucy about that. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos, and I will catch you in the next one.